Welcome back. Almost there. With just days left until voting begins, the Republican candidates have been making their final pitches to convince Iowans to caucus for them on Monday night. Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis met for the fifth Republican debate on Wednesday, where they traded jabs and went after former President Donald Trump, who was just down the street, for a Fox News town hall where he had all sorts of newsworthy moments. And all of this came on the same night that Chris Christie dropped out of the GOP primary race, causing another stir in this interesting and historic primary. We'll talk about what these final days have looked like, crucial moments, and what to anticipate for Monday night. We'll be taking a look at those stories and more today, January 12th, 2023. From Ishan Media, this is the Ishan S. Show, a podcast about the interesting and ever-changing world of American politics. With me, your host, Ishan. 3 days left until the Iowa caucuses and 298 days left until the general election. We made it, guys. We've been doing this for over a year now. We've been looking at candidates. We've been talking about issues. We've been following the headlines, but we're here. We're almost here. We are just days away, 3 days away from the first time we are going to see votes cast in the Republican primary and officially kick off the 2024 election. And for political nerds like me, this is like one of the most exciting, times of an election year, like this moment that we are in. Because even though this is remarkably one of the more less anticlimactic ones, it is still fun. It's fun to see so much effort and all of these newsworthy moments and money being spent and everything come together, come to fruition with actual results. And it's not going to end on Monday night. If anything, it just kicks off a year's worth of headlines and news. So I am so excited to get into this. And I'm so excited to make this final episode right before it. If you're listening to us on YouTube, you know that we might be coming out with a few videos because we're on YouTube now, guys, and we've been trying to push ourselves out there. So go subscribe, go view, go share, whatever. But yeah, we are just days away from the crucial Iowa caucuses. And tune in next week because I think we're going to do a special edition of the Ishan S. Show to break down what happens in Iowa. Maybe Tuesday, I think, probably. But keep an eye out for that. Maybe we'll do something. But anyway, as we enter into the Iowa caucuses, we are seeing our polling numbers at about 16% for both Nikki Haley and 16% for Ron DeSantis. And that's about stagnant because it's kind of shifted a little bit because now Nikki Haley is in second place. So that's pretty interesting now. And it's kind of a blow for DeSantis. If you watch the YouTube video, I was talking about how Iowa is kind of make or break for DeSantis. If he does not have a convincingly good performance in Iowa, it's kind of game over for him. And it needs to be good. So and then Donald Trump is far and ahead at 51%. So I'm not going to even bother talking about where he's polling at because he's in his own league, as I like to say. But as we enter into this, we had a Republican debate this week, as well as Trump's town hall. I'm going to talk about the Republican debate first because I have a lot of things I want to cover, and I don't want this episode to be too long. So with the Republican debate, I'm not going to go chronologically again. I'm going to try to talk about the key moments that I really liked. So going in, if I had to rate both of the candidates' performances, I would say for Ron DeSantis, if he had a do no harm principle, he did a good job. Like, he did not do anything to harm his campaign. I think he actually came across as nice and genuine this time. Obviously, but though it wasn't enough to convince anybody. I don't think anybody's been at all convinced that Ron DeSantis is their candidate. Any independent voters or undecideds, I don't think have made up their mind as a result of DeSantis's performance because, again, it's Ron DeSantis. Like, who are we talking about, guys? But Nikki Haley, I think Nikki Haley, we have seen her now 5 times. And 5 times, 4 out of 5 of those times, I've been remarkably impressed. Like, I'm like, wow, despite everything that happens, she manages to come up above the fray, and she knows how to shut people down. This time was probably one of the more disappointing performances we've seen from Nikki Haley. It's not her best. She's done better. And as I've been viewing and watching her in this campaign, but even as I know her as a politician following her career for the past few years, she's had better nights. So that's my overall takeaway from the debate so far. But I want to go into key moments that I think are going to be a really important thing to Iowa voters. So we first start with, first I want to talk about the big news that happened before this debate. So before this debate happened, 2 hours before, Chris Christie said that he's dropping out of the race. Completely caught everyone by surprise. No one saw that coming. Like, everyone's like, what? I mean, everybody knew that Chris Christie was going to drop out. Like, he needed to, because he had no place and he wasn't going to win. It's just he was so confident that he was going to make it to the convention and that he had no intention of dropping out. Everyone was surprised. They were like, whoa, that's crazy. He said that he did not think he has he did not have like a path to the nomination, and immediately people were saying, oh wow, Chris Christie's out of the race. That's great news for Nikki Haley, because a lot of Chris Christie supporters in New Hampshire are generally anti-Trump voters who like Nikki Haley's moderate-esque policies. Like, they were both winning the same type of voter. So that's what they were saying. And with that, naturally, a few people were expecting Chris Christie to endorse Nikki Haley, but he'd been shutting down the idea for a while, and he wasn't like all too crazy about it. That was until right before, like, that was confirmed by a hot mic moment. A hot mic, basically, the microphone was recording even though no one knew, because they were setting him up right before the event where he announced he was dropping out. There was a hot mic moment where he did not give the most splendid endorsement of Haley or DeSantis, for that matter, and his lack of faith in anybody in this campaign. I want to play that hot mic clip, and then we'll get into the debate.
Forget she spent $68 million.
Yeah.
I mean, we spent like
Well, when you give land to China and places like that.
Yeah, that's what you get.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, she spent $68 million so far, just on TV. Spent $68 million so far, $59 million by DeSantis, and we spent 12. I mean, who's punching above their weight and who's getting a return on their investment, you know? And she's going to get smoked, and you and I both know it. She's not up to this.
she hasn't even been
And she's still 20 points behind Trump in New Hampshire, right?
Yeah.
And,
Oh, yeah.
And he's still going to carry Iowa, right?
Yes, always. I talked to DeSantis, called me, petrified that I would.
He's probably getting out after Iowa.
Well,
Ouch. Like that. That's gotta hurt. In reaction to what he said, Nikki Haley said, the fellas don't think I've always underestimated me. Like, that's what she says. So she's not really taking it to heart. The thing about DeSantis, I want to know what DeSantis was calling him petrified about. I wish they didn't cut the mic out, but it's okay. We can speculate all we want. But yeah, that was Chris Christie, and that kind of set some of the tone for the debate. So as we open into the debate, I will tell you right now, much of this debate was just Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis insulting each other. I know in the opening I said traded jabs and went after former President Donald Trump. That's kind of misleading, because as I think about it now, it was mainly just Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis attacking the heck out of each other. And it was funny because they should be attacking Donald Trump more. And it's not that now they're increasing the veracity of the attacks on Donald Trump, but then at the same time, they are also now negating that and trying to just go after each other. And I mean, if they're the only ones on stage, obviously they will. But I want to play the opening statements because I really like these opening statements, especially DeSantis. His was okay, but Nikki Haley's opening statement I thought was kind of funny about a drinking game. And I will tell you that much of the theme of this night was just them calling each other liars. So that's why this may sound like they're calling each other liars, because that's actually just what it is. So that's kind of the context you need. So here are the opening statements.
Now, Nikki Haley is running. We don't need another mealy-mouthed politician who just tells you what she thinks you want to hear just to try to get your vote, then to get in office and to do her donors' bidding. She was in another state, and she said the people of Iowa's votes need to be corrected. This is somebody that wrote in her book that Hillary Clinton inspired her to first run for office. I remember Hillary denigrating people on the Republican side as deplorables. We don't need a candidate who's going to look down on middle America. We've had enough of that. I'm the only one that's going to be able to lead this country's revival. I'm asking for your support, and I won't let you down.
Find out tonight that there's going to be a lot of Ron's lies that have happened. There are at least a couple of dozen so far that he's done. But every time he lies, Drake University, don't turn this into a drinking game because you will be overserved by the end of the night.
And that kicked off the night of calling each other liars. So I'm using the Hill's top 5 moments from the debate because I liked what they had to say about it. And it seems about right, like what they said, because the first thing they say is Haley repeatedly pitching DeSantisLies.com. Her campaign created this website where they were tracking all these so-called DeSantis lies that he was saying about her and about her campaign. And so they just made a website to fact check him, which I'm pretty sure DeSantis had actually already done a few debates ago, but no one brought that up. And not even he did. I thought that was interesting. But every single time DeSantis would say something that pissed off Nikki Haley would then be like, DeSantisLies.com. According to The Hill, they said that it was 16 times that throughout the debate that she invoked DeSantisLies.com. And after a while, I thought it's a smart resource, obviously, that you make for voters. And it's nice to like throw around in a debate. But honestly, after a while, it just got so annoying. It was bothersome, and it was just, she kept saying it. And this was like one of those chief things that I really felt like showed that this was not Haley's night. And repeatedly just saying, go to DeSantisLies.com, DeSantisLies.com. He's lying again, DeSantisLies.com. After a while, I was like, maybe I don't want to go on DeSantisLies.com. Maybe you could do something better about this. And then Ron DeSantis, on the other hand, he also is not good at handling attacks, I would say. Like every time Nikki Haley would attack him for being a liar, at least she was good at it. DeSantis is just not good at attacking people. And maybe it's because he's a nice, sweet guy. I can hear some people laughing. But he also is just not good at criticizing people in that sense. He instead just resorted to straight up bullying. And that is kind of he was trying to copy the Trump demeanor, you copy the Trump rhetoric, the Trump demeanor, the Trump language, and try to convey himself as Mr. Tough Guy, and like bully Haley, although she was not really taking the bait, so I guess it wasn't that effective. But here's some clips of them calling each other liars, basically.
Or anything else to Ukrainians. I've said it again, Ron, so stop lying.
DeSantisLies.com.
Governor DeSantis, she has the floor.
Nikki Haley has this tactic. If you hold her accountable to her record, first she'll say, I never said that. Well, one good rule of thumb, if she says she's never said something, that definitely means she said it. Now that she's getting scrutiny, she's got this problem with ballistic podiatry, shooting herself in the foot every other day.
All right, and then to continue that trend of just negativity and toxicity, then after that, Nikki Haley started making a lot of below-the-belt like attacks on DeSantis, and I just thought they weren't classy. I thought that she had more eloquent ways of going at him. For example, they were talking about school choice, and DeSantis was criticizing Nikki Haley for not implementing school choice in South Carolina, even though she campaigned on doing it when she was running for governor. And this was an exchange that kept going on. And then after a while, just to get him to shut up, Nikki Haley then attacks his campaign and his ability to govern, because that school choice argument became a bigger discussion about then leadership and capability. And DeSantis essentially said that Nikki Haley doesn't know how to run a country because of the fact that she couldn't answer for school choice. Then Nikki Haley just straight up said, just attacked him for how he runs his campaign. Obviously, DeSantis is really bad in this campaign right now. Like, this is not the best for him. He was doing much better a year ago. But the way she attacked him, I thought was just not classy. I thought it wasn't good. It could have been done better, and it could have been done at a better time. instead of answering the question about school choice, Haley just resorts to saying Ron DeSantis is running this poor campaign with poor polling numbers. He doesn't know how to do this. Blah, 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 blah. She said, quote, he has blown through $150 million. I don't even know how you do that. He has nothing to show for it. I have the clip. So here's a clip of Haley then going after DeSantis.
The best way to tell about a candidate is to see how they've run their campaign. He has blown through $150 million. I don't even know how you do that. Through his campaign, he has nothing to show for it. He spent more money on private planes than he has on commercials trying to get Iowans to vote for him. If you can't manage a campaign, how are you going to manage a country? Which is exactly...
And it was one of those types of ouch, ouch moments. It was not good for either candidate, because even though it was not a classy move on Haley's part, it was still showed DeSantis in a bad light. It showed that he is a poor campaigner, and that's not good going into the Iowa caucuses. Although DeSantis then later criticized Haley for that by saying that she's bringing up these political processes that the voters don't really care about, which it made sense, I would say, but again, still, it's not a good show when your opponent can point out to the fact that you've blown through $150 million with nothing to show for it. But anyway, the next topic that they talked about then was Donald Trump. And this is where the attacks were happening. And Donald Trump was a topic that he faced a lot more criticism from both candidates. And like I told you in last week's episode, they've been increasing the attacks on Donald Trump. Well, now it came in, it's formed on a debate stage. So both of them attacked Donald Trump. First, they were talking about a recent court thing that his lawyers said. Basically, they were talking about presidential immunity and what a president can get away with. And Trump's lawyers were asked, if SEAL Team 6, which is basically the elite, an elite army unit, if you want to go, military unit, that's used for special operations, taking out people like terrorists or doing big, complex but secretive tasks. The judges asked the lawyers, can a president use SEAL Team 6 to take out a political opponent and not face prosecution? And essentially, the lawyers said, yes, you can. They cannot be put in prison for it unless they're impeached. So that weighed in a lot. And DeSantis didn't answer the question when he was asked about it. Haley pushed back, and she said it was ridiculous. Which it is. It's kind of ridiculous to assume that. But DeSantis wouldn't really answer the question. Instead, DeSantis started talking about how Trump is a weak candidate as a result of his criminal charges, because it's a D.C. jury. Doesn't matter if the prosecutions are rigged. He's going to get convicted because of the fact that it's in D.C. and a liberal jury is going to convict him. But they were making attacks at Donald Trump, which to their credit, they haven't done before, and it was the strongest attacks yet. So here's some brief clips of them attacking Donald Trump.
Well, I think the next president needs to have moral clarity. I wish Donald Trump was up here on this stage. He's the one that I'm running against.
Donald Trump should be on this stage. He owes it to you here in Iowa.
Lastly, they started talking about foreign policy. And they started first with Israel, and they were talking about how they were going to handle the issue. They stuck to the same talking points, except now Nikki Haley was attacking one of DeSantis's chief supporters, Thomas Massie, and was attacking him for being, anti-Israel. Thomas Massie. He was, I think, in the audience, maybe. I don't even know, but was going after him for that, and it was trying to compare Ron DeSantis to being anti-Israel, and as Republicans, their official position is to back Israel. So that was the kind of the jab that she was trying to make, although it was not as strong, and I don't think it really served her well. But it was still an effective attack because DeSantis didn't know how to respond. But the bigger debate that I wanted to talk about was Ukraine. Ukraine got a lot of discussion, They were first, DeSantis basically said that Nikki Haley's a carbon copy of President Biden on Ukraine, because she wants to send money to Ukraine, that she wants to send and get involved. And again, DeSantis was taking that modern isolationist approach to the issue that the Republican Party is slowly embracing. So not surprising. And again, I was just listening that DeSantis in that debate, DeSantis represents the new wing of the Republican Party and Haley represented the old. And that was kind of the debate they were having. So, yeah, so here's Nikki Haley criticizing Ron DeSantis on his Ukraine policy.
Nobody knows what he believes, because when President Obama was in office, he supported foreign aid to Ukraine. Now he's copying Trump and trying to act like he doesn't want to support Ukraine.
And that was generally just how she's been doing it. And again, foreign policy is where she's the strongest from her time in the UN. She definitely has more experience. And I was just listening to one of the Iowa voters who actually attended the debate. He said he's backing Nikki Haley for foreign policy reasons because she has a better grasp of it. And this is where she does the strongest, because she comes across, you don't have to agree with her views as much, but she does come across as smart and informed on the issues. Like, she knows what she's talking about. And then DeSantis, though, he had the good line. I liked this line, and it was definitely like the only, like one of the more memorable lines. I would say the first memorable line was the drinking one that I was talking about earlier that Haley made. And then this next line that DeSantis said, I think this one was also pretty funny. So here is a clip of DeSantis's response to Haley, because basically what he was saying is that Nikki Haley's this globalist who doesn't care about America and wants to spend all her resources on Ukraine. So here is DeSantis's response, and it's an interesting comment.
UN way of thinking that we're somehow globalists and we have unlimited resources to do. You know, I think here's the problem. You can take the ambassador out of the United Nations, but you can't take the United Nations out of the ambassador.
You can take the ambassador out of the UN, but you can't take the UN out of the ambassador. That is one of the most interesting lines we've heard throughout this. And for all those attacks on this expert on foreign policy, I thought it was actually it was an effective attack. So good job to Ron DeSantis's debate prep team, I guess, that came up with that line, because definitely he did not come up with that. Knowing him, I don't think he came up with that. So that does it for that debate, moderated by CNN. Dana Bash, Jake Tapper, great debate. Definitely one of the things. Did it move the needle? I don't think so. I really just think it's maybe solidified for some people that it's important to vote for their candidate or whatever. But I don't think it really changed anybody's mind. I don't think anybody left. They did a poll of 10 randomly selected audience members. 4 people said they're backing Haley. 4 people said they're backing DeSantis. 2 people said that Trump won. I agree with the fact that Trump won. This was not a good night for either. And really, it was just Trump that came out of this better and stronger. Even though there was an Iowa poll that came out where Haley actually did increase her chances. I can't remember the exact numbers. I was just reading about it this morning, though, and she's doing well. But I still don't think it was remarkable, her performance or DeSantis's. But anyway, down the street, I'm not going to cover this one too much because I didn't watch this, but Donald Trump was just across the street at the exact same time for a split-screen event, taking questions for a Fox News town hall. The town halls have happened. Nikki Haley was on Monday, DeSantis was on Tuesday, and then the debate was on Wednesday. So we saw all candidates go on. Fox News invited everyone, and they purposely scheduled 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock to compete with the debate hosted by CNN. But Donald Trump was there, and he was, again, just being Donald Trump. And in this Republican primary, that's an asset for him. So the notable moments I want to talk about, there aren't many because, again, I didn't watch this. I was watching the debate. If I could watch both, you bet your bottom dollar I'd be watching both of these, but I couldn't. So I was watching the debate instead. I'm working off of highlights and I'm reading some of the Fox News articles, that analysis that came out. So First notable thing I think Trump said was no time for retribution. We might have discussed this. I can't remember if I talked about it or not, but you might recall that Donald Trump at a Sean Hannity town hall said that he when asked if he would be a dictator, he said only on day one. And much of his campaign and one of his earliest speeches said, "I am your retribution" to his supporters. He was setting up this really dark tone, like he's gonna be like this authoritarian figure. That's what he was coming across as. You might disagree with me, but that's kind of how it sounded. And so basically, Trump kind of strategically, I would say, changed his tone on it. And he said, I don't have time for retribution. I have so many things to fix. I don't have time for retribution. We're going to make this country successful again. That's what he said. I'm not going to have time for retribution. So I thought that was notable. The next thing was about a comment that he made regarding the stock market. He was essentially saying that in a clip that he said he hoped that the stock market would crash in the next 12 months so that Biden would get voted out. Then came across, that's not a good thing if you're rooting for the stock market to crash. People's pensions, people's 401ks, people's livelihoods depends on that. So it was a little off brand and a little distasteful to suggest something like that. So he decided to correct that. He said that if he lost this election, then the stock market would crash. So careful correction there. But I think the most notable thing that happened, the thing that I thought was the most interesting, and I will tell you a funny story about it, was when he was asked about a running mate. So Martha McCallum asks, like, have you been deciding and thinking about running mates? And Trump, shocked me during the debate because Fox News posted that news alert, and I was like, what? Apparently Trump has already made his pick for VP. He's already decided. He said, quote, I can't tell you that really when asked who. I mean, I know who it's going to be. That was when he was asked about it. And I thought that was really interesting that he's already picked somebody. Weird stuff, because I'd been working on an article for the cnvince.com about the top 10 likely people to be on Trump's VP shortlist. And I'd been working on it, and it takes a lot to write those articles. Like, it takes a lot of time. And I just thought that I'd be posting it in a few weeks because I knew that Trump's going to win this nomination probably, and the VP selection process would probably begin sooner. But apparently he's picked. I don't know if he's talked to the VP candidate yet, but he's picked it. So this is important. You can check the cnvince.com for that article, or you could check it out on YouTube because I covered it on YouTube last night. If you're listening to this on YouTube, you can listen to it after this episode. It should recommend it, I'm guessing. But it's crazy that he said that, because that is not at all characteristic of him to make that type of a big announcement like that. And neither is it to think this far ahead. I do not think that he'd be thinking like this. Who's it going to be? I don't know. I don't understand. I don't know how he thinks. When Martha McCallum asked, would you be opening to mending fences with anyone you've run against? Trump responded simply, quote, oh, sure, I will. I take that how you will. I don't think he's picking Nikki Haley, but it could happen because he was talking about it the other day. He faced a lot of pushback for it, but he was open to the idea of it. Trumping Trump, he knows that he likes to win, so maybe he's going to pick Nikki Haley. Who knows? But yeah, that was the Fox News town hall that Trump was in. Interesting stuff. As we enter into Iowa caucus night on Monday, exciting. I don't actually know how many people are going to turn out, because the important pitch that these guys had to make, I don't think they were convincing anybody new in this last week. I think what they were now trying to convince people to do was turn out. And if you're in the Midwest right now, like I am, you know that we're in the middle of a very big blizzard and snowstorm and snow weather event. And, the temperature is freezing and it's going to be so cold. I'm from Chicago. It's not as cold as it is in Iowa. It's definitely really cold here. Like, we're going to be like negatives. But in Iowa, it's going to be like negative 40 degrees. I was just watching CNN's coverage of the weather, and they were saying that Monday night is going to be the coldest Iowa caucus in recent memory. That's crazy. The high is going to be negative 4 degrees. So to turn people out to vote, DeSantis and Nikki Haley are going to have to work really hard, because whose supporters are going to walk on coal, walk through a jungle, go through anything to support their candidate? Trump supporters. They're going to do that. So DeSantis and Haley have to really convince their voters to turn out. And that's a big ask. It's a really big ask. So we're going to see how that does and how the weather is going to impact politics. I tell you, politics is involved in everything, including the weather. But yeah. So that's our look at the last week of the before the Iowa caucuses. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Tune in next week for special coverage with the Ishan S Show. Subscribe to the political news blog on the ishansshow.com. Follow us on Instagram, X, and Threads to get breaking news updates, especially about coverage of the caucuses. Subscribe on YouTube, because YouTube, I'm trying and learning and doing new things. So subscribe there to get a first row seat to all of that. Thank you so much for everything. We'll see you for the next episode after the Iowa caucuses. Let's make history. Bye, guys. And so that does it for us here today at the Ishan S Show. If you liked my commentary, then go ahead and follow the Ishan S Show on Twitter and Instagram for breaking news posts and updates about the show. And if you want to learn more about political stories, then check out my political news blog on the ishansshow.com and go ahead and subscribe to it. Do us a favor and share this episode and all your other favorite episodes with your friends and family. It's the best way for this show to grow and get more people listening to it. Thanks again for all your support, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.